Hello, viewer darling. Or should I also say, hello, listener darling. It is with my most miserable and despairing heart that I must put my crush on Rhys aside and gather my senses to inform you that the man we are conditioned to fall in love with, the man, nay, the Fae man, who carefully serves choices to women, who romantically stalks their mate for months, and who is told to us through lustful, youthful, and naive eyes, is, in fact, the utmost evil of them all. Now, before I get started, I want to include that I freaking love this series. I've read it twice. I'm considering reading it again. It was around reading the 5th book for the first time, though, that I started feeling different about Rhys, who I still very much have a crush on. However, Nesta made me see him a little bit differently, and thus it inspired me to write an essay about it. So, without further ado, I would like to share my essay with you called A Court of Manipulation, Delusion, and a Secret Third Thing. Hierarchies and positions of power are inherent themes throughout Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series, where female agency is seemingly placed on a pedestal by the most powerful High Lord to ever walk this earth. Direct quote from Akamath. Initially the explicit villain in ACOTAR, Rhys soon becomes a heroic enemy to lover whose mind and body torture that he performs on others, once revealed, apparently made sense all along. However, as scholar Ellen Nilsson expresses, Rhys is just as domineering and possessive as any of the villains throughout the ACOTAR series. As the ACOTAR world begins to further unfold throughout the novels, it is not Feyre's story that the reader is following, but a carefully manipulated and delusional version of Rhys's world, where his political, sexual, and powerful agenda are slowly revealed to be controlling everyone around him. And this is what was just so clear to me in Nesta's book, especially with the way that everyone treated Nesta through Rhys. Rhys wholeheartedly believes that the persona of the evil High Lord of the Night Court is a mask he only puts on when necessary. Once the perspective shifts from Feyre to Nesta in A Court of Silver Flames, Rhys's constant dominating level of power and control is divulged. Nesta's description of Rhys's actions demonstrate how his alternative and evil personality leaks into his real self, more than he believes throughout the series. However, like I mentioned, once the perspective shifts from Feyre to Nesta in A Court of Silver Flames, Rhys's constant dominating level of power and control is divulged. Nesta's description of Rhys's actions demonstrate how his alternative and evil personality leaks into his real self more than he believes throughout the entire series. Ultimately, Rhys is the most dangerous High Fae in all of Prythian, but it's not because of his power, like his magical power, but actually because he believes that he is genuinely and fundamentally good. Rhys's ignorance of his inherent problematic, manipulative, and controlling personality functions as a form of dangerous hypocrisy, leaving Rhys to be the evilest of all the characters in the ACOTAR series. So the first 4 novels are primarily told through Feyre's perspective. Through Feyre's eyes, we follow Rhys's introduction and development from Prythian's worst High Fae to Prythian's most desirable masculine hunk of wonder, and arguably the world's most desirable Fae hunk of wonder. Through Feyre's perspective, all of Rhys's decisions are because Rhys has been hurt in the distant and close past and will do anything to save his chosen family. During a conversation in A Court of Mist and Fury, Rhys informs Feyre that the reason he saves Tarquin's life under the mountain is, quote, because I'd heard how he wanted to even out the playing field between High Fae and Lesser Fairies. I've been trying to do that for years. The reader then gets a sneak peek at the sob story Rhys believes his life to be. He has been unsuccessful in his pursuits to change the world for 500 years. Rhys also believes himself to be a feminist, even if the word does not exist in the ACOTAR universe. He emphasizes how Feyre is always given choice over her actions. Quote, "You might be my mate," he said, "but you remain your own person. You decide your fate, your choices, not me. You choose yesterday, you choose every day." However, his noble quest to save the world and give his mate freedom of choice is largely undermined by the actions he takes throughout the series. One distinct reason that Rhys's actions do not meet his words is that Rhys does not know his true self. Even after 500 years of life, he is constantly described as adjusting his personality to fit the situation. Nilsen includes that, quote, "One of the masks he puts on for others is that of the evil High Lord, the ruler of the Court of Nightmares." Rhys's symbolic mask is embedded throughout descriptions of his character. When him and Feyre visit the Court of Nightmares, Rhys says, "What I have to be tomorrow, who I have to become, it's not something I want you to see. How I will treat you, treat others." To which Feyre responds, "The mask of the High Lord." Once they are in the Court of Nightmares, Rhys is noted to be giving his best performance when giving Kier orders, and Feyre thinks, Rhys didn't dare break from his mask. The person that Rhys describes he must become in this scene is one that Prythian believes him to be. Nilsen further suggests that Rhys is, quote, "ruthless in this scene." Rhys breaks Kier's fingers for disrespecting Feyre. Rhys has been displaying and becoming this violent and intrusive person who he claims is not himself for centuries. I don't blame Rhys for all of his actions. If you read the books, you will understand that Prythian functions on a lot of violence, misogyny, and class discrimination. And people need to do what they have to do to survive, especially when you go through trauma. However, Rhys's evil performance becomes problematic when his so-called alter ego begins leaking into what he believes is his real self. After 500 years of performing as someone else, the concept of method acting can be used to help explain how this version of himself gets intertwined with his real self. In acting theory, J.L. Marino, the founder of psychodrama, theorized that, quote, "many internal selves or roles lie within every individual." Rhys's internal selves juxtapose against each other as absolute evil to kind-hearted family man. However, Rhys's expertise at flipping the switch on his personality signifies that he reaches for something already inside of himself. More specifically, method acting is described as, quote, "the use of one's own life experiences in the creative imagination to infuse each choice with genuine thought, desire, sensation, action, and feeling, resulting in psychological in-depth behavior." Throughout the ACOTAR series, when Rhys performs his Night Lord self, he channels his life experience to not act as someone else, but become that someone else. The problem arises when he begins to unknowingly infuse his real self with what the world believes him to be, resulting in a third persona, the one he does not actually see is who he is. The use of an inhabited role to this degree through a performance may impact an actor's native self-conception. Rhys has performed this role for 500 years, convincing thousands of Fae and humans of his malicious intent, darkness, and menacing power. Rhys's portrayal as the High Lord of the Court of Nightmares is highly convincing, not only because he is a good actor, but because that is who Rhys has been performing as and slowly becoming for centuries. Once Feyre's focalization of Rhys is switched to Nesta in A Court of Silver Flames, Rhys's true third self becomes extremely evident. The way he treats those closest to him in not only A Court of Silver Flames, but the entire series takes an alarming shift. Rhys treats Feyre like an object and strips her of agency throughout the entire relationship. Even before Rhys knows who Feyre is, he willingly uses his Daemati. Oh my gosh. Everyone who reads fantasy says words differently, so I'm going to pronounce Daemati as Daemati. I'm sorry if that is really annoying and not how you say it. That is how I say it. Anyway, Rhys treats Feyre like an object and strips her of her agency throughout the entire relationship. Even before Rhys knows who Feyre is, he willingly uses his Daemati power when visiting Tamlin's estate in ACOTAR. The way he treats those closest to him in not only A Court of Silver Flames, but the whole series, takes an alarming shift. Rhys treats Feyre like an object and strips her of her agency throughout their entire relationship arc. Even before he knows who Feyre is, he willingly uses his Daemati power when visiting Tamlin's estate in ACOTAR. And the Daemati power is the word that is used to describe him controlling people. Feyre describes the experience of having her mind and body controlled as, quote, against my volition, my body straightened, every muscle going taut, my bones straining. Magic, but deeper than that. Power that seized everything inside me and took control. Even my blood flowed where he willed it. In this moment, Rhys knows that Feyre is human and powerless, and does not necessarily have to demonstrate his almighty power to control her and threaten everyone in the room, but he does it anyway. So at this point in A Court of Thorns and Roses, Feyre is not Fae yet. She's just a normal human being, and she would be scared regardless if he was controlling her. And he also knows that he's extensively stronger than her. He knows that there are other people in the room who he is stronger than and can control, but he still chooses to do that before he knows that she's his mate. As ACOTAR continues, Rhys's control of Feyre's body becomes more intense and useless. There is a clear power imbalance between Rhys and Feyre, so his actions towards her are honestly unjustified. The power imbalance between them is insane. He is like at least 450 years older than her. He's way stronger than her. He has magic. She doesn't. The power imbalance is so big, and he still does all of this stuff. Gianna Jorgensen states that in ACOTAR, Feyre, quote, is clearly in a disadvantageous position. She is relying on Rhysand for survival, and while he helps her, he also treats her poorly. As she is dressed, drugged, and forced to dance, her control and agency is stripped away. Although later in the books, Rhys admits to doing these things under the mountain to protect her, he also admits that he made the decisions for her, and earlier admitted that taunting Tamlin is my greatest pleasure. A direct quote from Mist and Fury. There are numerous other things that Rhys could have done to help Feyre under the mountain, which did not involve bothering Tamlin, borderline assaulting Feyre, and forcing Feyre to do drugs. Rhys's decisions are rife with conceited double standards. His actions under the mountain ultimately reveal to be manipulative, and the decisions he made were primarily for himself. Rhys's agenda is further portrayed when he gives Feyre the grand illusion of capital TC, the choice. However, the biggest choices he gives Feyre all have an obvious better option, signifying that there really are no choices, but functions of manipulation for Rhys to get what he wants. The first choice he gives Feyre is under the mountain. Feyre is in immeasurable pain when Rhys comes strolling in, offering to heal her arm in exchange for 1 week a month with him at the night court. Rhys says, I'll heal your arm in exchange for you. In this scene, Rhys knows that if Feyre's arm does not heal, then she will die. So she has no other choice but to agree if she wants to live. However, even with this life-threatening knowledge, Rhys still forces her to agree by further breaking her arm after she originally says no to him. Not only is Feyre not given a choice, but her body is further mutilated by Rhys to force her acceptance. It is later revealed that the reason for this specific bargain is because Rhys believes that they may be mates. Even with Rhys's speculation of their connection, he still hurts her both physically and mentally for his own benefit, to ultimately get Feyre to spend time with him at the night court. And that's nuts. I mean, that's like someone saying, I could break all of your fingers or I could shoot you in the head. And they really like breaking people's fingers. Like, you're gonna choose the fingers. Or you really hate making puzzles and someone says, hey, make this puzzle with me or I'm gonna shoot you in the head. You can choose. You're gonna choose the puzzle. The choice here, there's no choice. There really is no choice. Rhys also always offers Feyre the choice to stay at the night court. He offers this choice as he slowly charms her and essentially seduces her to stay. When Feyre makes the choice to stay, Rhys continues manipulating her to use her powers for his political gain. When pressuring Feyre to learn to use her powers, he includes that. Do you understand what that might mean in an upcoming war? Do you understand how it might destroy you if you don't learn to control it? Rhys's manipulative tactics here indicate that if Feyre does not learn to use her powers, she will die. After giving Feyre option 1, he includes that you've got another choice. You can master whatever powers we gave to you and make it count. Through their bond, which Feyre still does not fully know about, Rhys knows that Feyre is headstrong and will react to this level of persuasion. And after giving Feyre another choice of life or death, Rhys includes that Feyre is no one's subject. Feyre's choice to either learn or not learn her powers is an illusion that functions from clever manipulation. Rhys clearly wants Feyre to learn how to use her powers here, and he knows that threatening Feyre with death, persuading her to believe it is her choice, and that learning her powers will help in a war to save her family. Feyre's choice to either learn or not learn her powers is an illusion that functions from clever manipulation learned from like the 400 plus years he's lived longer than her. Rhys clearly wants Feyre to learn how to use her powers here, and he knows that threatening Feyre with death, persuading her to believe it is her choice, and that learning her powers will help in a war to save her family. And this will ultimately control Feyre's decision. So he's really pulling at every thread he can get his hands on because he wants it to work that badly. Along with giving Feyre the illusion of choices, Rhys consistently lies to Feyre throughout the series. Rhys believes that his choices are always correct, and although he believes he is considering the other person, the consequences of his actions demonstrate that Rhys only continues stripping Feyre of her agency throughout their relationship. He goes on a big rant, one of the many, about why he chose not to tell Feyre about the mating bond, to which she responds, "I don't want to hear you explain how you assumed that you knew best." Typically, when Feyre calls Rhys out like this for making a big decision for her, he retorts by saying that she is new to the world and isn't familiar with the ways that it works, which further displays the undermining of her autonomy of herself and his so-called kindness. His knowledge of knowing that she has no knowledge to manipulate her further and make her make certain decisions, which all eventually end up in a way that he wanted all along or wants. Rhys's biggest lie is revealed in A Court of Silver Flames, where he makes the decision to tell everyone else that their baby will kill Feyre during birth. After spewing the righteousness of choice for 4 books, Rhys withholds this information, thinking that he knows what is best for Feyre's body, demonstrating that he has learned nothing about her. Nesta responds and rightfully tells Feyre that, "I do know that your mate ordered everyone not to inform you of the truth," indicating that it was entirely Rhys's decision to not tell Feyre. Rhys is incapable of considering the perspective of others to the point that allows him to consider changing his decisions or understanding someone else, even his mates. He manipulates and controls Feyre to the highest degree, in my opinion, through lies and bodily control, hidden by juxtaposing choices and the illusion that he wants what's best for the person and not himself. I've given examples of him explaining why he's made these choices, and there's a bit of understanding, but it's just continuing, and it gets worse when we're no longer in Feyre's perspective, when we're no longer in someone's perspective of someone who loves him and are instead in Nesta's perspective, someone who honestly kind of hates him but has grown to like him or at least respect him more because he is her sister's mate. So he does not only give Feyre the choice, but also Nesta. One of Nesta's choices is to be locked in the House of Wind to train, work, and behave, or get dumped somewhere in the human lands. After Rhys berates Tamlin for doing that to Feyre, he easily agrees to do the same for Nesta. It's just so hypocritical. It's also them asking her to behave is no longer spending their money, which, like, I get, but it's also like they've been spending the money they have on like alcohol, going out, and they want her to behave by not having sex with a lot of people. And after hearing stories about what Rhys has done with his friends for their entire hundreds years of existence, it's just so hypocritical to try to control her like that when they've been doing the same things for centuries. Furthermore, near the end of A Court of Silver Flames, Rhys trophies Nesta to Eris once he learns of her seducing power to help his political agenda without considering what Nesta even wants. He says, knowing that Nesta will always try to keep Elaine safe, you and Elaine are my only options. So he's telling Nesta is either you or your little sister, a person he knows he can use as a pawn to get Nesta to agree with him. Although Rhys works the same logic on Nesta that he does Feyre, Nesta still threatens Rhys's control with her power. Rhys's fear of Nesta's power fully exposes his true self, as he cannot seduce her into agreeing with him like he does with Feyre. When Nesta says no to Rhys's orders, something that nobody in his core group ever does, Rhys's High Lord of Night Court persona comes forth at full force. When Nesta gets up to leave the room where everyone is making fun of her, Rhys, without considering how she could be feeling, commands her to sit down. Nesta thinks the raw command in that voice, the utter dominance and power. Rhys clearly knows his position in the world and, without requirements, channels that side of himself outside the Court of Nightmares. After the same discussion, Cassian describes Rhys as having the same cold precision in his face when slicing up enemies. The same enemies who know Rhys as his evil alter ego, not family man Rhys. Finally, when Nesta tells Feyre about the baby, Rhys tells Cassian to get Nesta out of the city before I fucking kill her. The violence he feels for Nesta is quite similar to how the world sees Rhys, full of rage and domineering control. Nesta's actions then reveal Rhys's true identity as someone who cannot stand to not be in control of every situation and everybody in it. But when he makes these decisions for people in his chosen family, he always has reasons for doing it, which is where the intertwining of the two selves come from to create this third persona. He doesn't see that it's happening, but that's who he is. And that's what makes him so honestly terrifying. The other men of the Night Court's actions towards Rhys further reveal his identity. Both Cassian and Azriel idolize Rhys. When Nesta calls Rhys an arrogant, preening asshole, Cassian responds, "Don't you fucking talk about Rhys with that tone." Cassian snarled. Even after Cassian experiences Rhys's explicit bullying of Nesta, he still stands up for him with a high level of anger, even towards his own mate. Azriel also bows down to Rhys in the bonus chapter of Silver Flames, where Rhys catches Azriel trying to kiss Elaine. When Azriel tells Rhys that he cannot order him to stay away from someone, Rhys replies, "Oh, I can, and I will," arguing that it is Lucian's right to defend the bond. However, Rhys decides to include to Azriel in his argument against their love that your doing so will rip apart any fragile peace and alliances we have, not only with the Autumn Court, but also with the Spring Court, Andurian, and Vassa. Here, Rhys shows that he is not mad at Azriel for disrespecting the mating tradition, per se, but more angry about Azriel ruining possible political alliances. I wonder if Azriel was worried about Rhys doing that when he went in to steal Feyre, or was Azriel worried when Rhys or Morgan infiltrated the Spring Court to get Feyre out of there, or the list goes on and on. Like, who knows, but it doesn't matter because Azriel doesn't control Rhys, Rhys controls Azriel. Rhys also threatens Azriel when he tries to oppose, saying that he will make Azriel regret it, which stunned Azriel. In this scene, Rhys's inner diabolical self once again leaches to the forefront of his personality, where his anger and controlling nature mimics his actions in the Court of Nightmares and the rest of Prythian. Azriel ultimately listens to Rhys, knowing that his threats of pain and regret are very much real. So through manipulation and violence, Rhys controls everything in his life: his mate, his friends, his court, and his family. His intense performance of acting as the great High Lord coexists with the opposite person that he believes himself to be. His belief that he is genuinely kind and the ignorance of his disturbing actions make him more evil than Amarantha, the King of Highburn and Brylan, because they all know exactly what they want. And in a sense, they know that they are evil and they know what their motivations are. But Rhys is just like suppressing this rage at all times, and it's unnerving. The antagonists of the ACOTAR series know their darkness, while Rhys believes his dark side only comes out when he wants it to. As Rhys controls everyone around him, he fails to control himself. The true mask of Rhysand, dear viewer, or listener, is just Rhys's beautiful face, as he has also controlled us through the mediating of Feyre's narration as well. Thank you so much for listening to my essay on the Court of Thorns and Roses series. My Substack will be linked below, and feel free to comment your thoughts. Does it make you feel icky that there is such a power imbalance between Rhys and Feyre, or do you just not care and you're here to have a good time? Did I change your opinion? Was this your opinion all along? I'd love to know. And thank you so much for watching, dear viewer, and I will see you next time. Bye.